My dad was a farmer. He was a farmer. He was also an industrial worker. He worked for Goodyear during the day. And in the evenings when he came home, he did farming. When they allowed us, we had a cotton patch, a little cotton patch, about 4 or 5 acres of cotton. Always had corn, always had peas, always had beans, potatoes. So we were basically, the only thing we needed from town basically was sometimes we would have to we'd buy beef or whatever to supplement, but everything else we raised out there on the farm. He came to Georgia with his folks from West Virginia when the settling of Chubbtown was done. He was second generation. His father was first generation of the settlers of Chubbtown. He and Cousin Sonny, my granddaddy and Cousin Sonny settled it together. And James, Cousin Sonny's son, and me and myself, third generation in Chubbtown, My mother was, she was born in Cedartown. She was born in Cedartown, Georgia, Polk County. My grandmother was about a quarter Cherokee, and I remember seeing my great-grandmother just maybe a couple of months, or maybe it might have been a year, but you know, when you're that young, you don't really keep up with time. I remember seeing her in the bed. My grandmother and grandfather kept her until she passed. My mother's name was Alma Alvesta Chubb. And she's a little short, heavyset woman that said what she meant and meant what she said. No doubt, no ways about it. She was a stickler for cleanliness, and she was a stickler for, although she only received about a 5th or 6th grade education. Right. She was a stickler for hitting the books and doing what I needed to do in school, and she had plenty of help. My cousin and Josie Sams, she taught the 1st grade here, and she was my 1st grade teacher. Right. And whenever I did anything bad, anything wrong, she lived out by Lions Bridge. But a lot of times she wouldn't. When I did something bad, I knew I done messed up. It would be when cousin Joseph would come up to me and say, "You're not riding the bus this evening. I'm taking you home." That meant her and Mama was gonna have a conversation about what I had done. That meant her trip to the hedge bush to get. That meant a trip to the hedge bush to get a switch. So I tried to keep out of both of their ways as much as I could.
Pause right there.
Yeah.
What the trip to the hedge tree? Tell them about the platinum. Did you?
Yeah.
Kind of explain so everybody would know what that means.
My mom had a way of punishing you. You would already have taken a whipping before she actually administered the whipping, because she would talk to you. And she would make you, if you thought you was that tall, by the time she finished, you were down here, and her final conversation would be, "Now boy, go get me a switch." So we had this big flowering shrub out in front of the house. She said, "Boy, go get me a switch." And I went out to that shrub, and I brought back in. It was, for me, it was a nice size switch. I brought in one about that long, and it was kind of whimsical, you know. It was. I gave it to her, and she laughed. Yeah, she chuckled, and she said, "Now, I want you to go back to that same bush and get me 4 more just like this." And I sit there and waited and watched her while she braided those up to give me a beating, But it didn't hurt. It only hurt for as long as she stopped beating. But it made me learn how to dance. So. She was a good woman. She had a garden, and we kept it up. We kept it up nice, and she was great. Like I said, she was a great cook, and I still miss her. But the beating didn't kill me because I'm still here, and
Tell me what those beatings did for you.
what those beatings did?
Long term.
Long term.
Do you appreciate still?
I appreciate what she was doing and what she was trying to do. Only thing she was doing was trying to teach us respect for each other, respect for other people.
Correct.
Treat other people the way you want to be treated. Don't whatever it is you think you need, come to us. If we hadn't got it, we have to do without, because we have to do without things. Don't steal. Don't hurt anybody's feelings. It was a lot of don'ts, but her don'ts kind of coincided with the commandments and the statutes. So she didn't do anything outside of what she was trying to do, and she was trying to raise a respectable family. It didn't, and it wasn't for making a name for herself. It was just trying to make us be better, better. And I guess that's where she got, this is going to hurt you more than me. Going to hurt me more than you. But I guess it did, because it hurt me. I began to understand what she was talking about when I had to start disciplining my children. You didn't want to come on like a bad guy, but they had to know that there were some things that was expected of them, that humanity expected of them. Not only the family, but humanity expected it of us. And I had some good times out there. I still miss it. I still miss Chubbtown.
I'm sure.
I still miss Chubbtown.
Sure. So you grew up. You graduated from.
I graduated from Cedar Hill.
Cedar Hill.
Cedar Hill. Cedar Hill. I graduated from Cedar Hill. I graduated in '61. I left Fairview. I left Fairview in the school year 54, 55. I started 55, 56 at Lyles Elementary in Cedartown, and that's about the same time that they were combining county and city schools in the elementary stage. So I went there and I went 2 years there. I went there the 6th grade year, because I finished the 5th grade year here. I went there the 6th grade year and the 7th grade year. And I went to Cedar Hill in my 8th grade, in the 8th grade year.
So what did you find, what do you recall about Fairview? What happened here? What motivated you? What was the lasting impression?
The impression I got from Fairview is it was a village.
Okay.
That it was a village. It wasn't, even the teachers that came in from other places, even the teachers that came in from other areas to come here to teach, they would go right into, because they were always welcome in this community.
Correct. Okay.
They were always welcome in this community. They and our parents and our grandparents were active in the PTA.
Right. Okay.
They were active in what was going on in Cave Spring and Cedartown, and that was one of the great features of Fairview, was the closeness and the integration of the parents and the teachers.
Correct.
Teachers that came here took on the same nature as Cave Springians.
Yeah.
Teachers that came here, I don't care where they came from. Once they came here and they met the parents. The parents welcomed in, and they gave them the understanding that whatever you need to keep our children in line,
Sure.
then that's what, if he gives you trouble, if she gives you trouble, let us know. And it was a village. Like I said, it was a village. It wasn't like you going away because some teachers came and they left, but the village remained. The village, the closeness between parents and teachers and the system remained. It remained intact. Like I said, it was a family situation. It covered Moten Bend, it covered Flat Rock, it covered all the areas in here that within the county of Floyd, and it was spread out. But we all became like almost like brothers and sisters because that's where we were brought up. We were brought up to treat everybody the same way. We'd come in the morning, we'd take our seats, and we know we'd start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'd say the prayer, and then we'd sit down and she'd tap on the desk, Sister Ola would tap on the desk, and we knew it was time to learn. And I got a lot of experiences. People don't. A lot of us have forgotten about it, but they taught economics, and when they taught economics in Cave Spring, it wasn't. It took a while for economics to move from the girls to include the boys, but at Fairview, we participated. It wasn't a girl thing. It wasn't a female thing. It was a family-oriented study and class.
Right.
I know how to darn socks. you know, I know how to darn socks. And back in those days, money wasn't flowing freely.
Oh yeah.
I learned how to reverse. I don't know if you can reverse the collars on our dress shirts now, but I learned how to reverse a collar that had become frayed on the inside. How to reverse the collar of that, So everything that was taught to teach us how to get along on a little, and still be presentable to the people. And I enjoyed it. I took some of those things with me, and they still remain with me today.
So you graduated from Fairview, or did you graduate from?
I graduated from.
Main High.
No, I graduated from Cedar Hill High School. Yeah,
Right.
Cedar Hill High School.
That is wonderful.
Yeah.
That is wonderful then. And so, what has your career path been? And tell me a little bit about your family life now.
Well, I remember my first job. I was still in high school, about 16, 17, and I drove delivery for Bradford Drug there in Cedartown. This is a family-owned business, family-owned drugstore, and I drove for them. And in '62, I got a job at Lockheed. So I worked at Lockheed from '62. I only stayed there for 2 years though, but I met Mary Barnett's. I met Mary Barnett's niece that came down here to visit on Cleveland. I just went bonkers, and she lived in Cleveland. And when our first son was born, we left here in '64, and I moved to Cleveland. When I got to Cleveland, I worked at just about any job I could find when I first moved up there. I had a family support. My mother-in-law and father-in-law were gracious enough to give us a place to stay with them. And I'd get out every morning. I didn't have a vehicle at the time. I'd get out every morning. I learned Cleveland by riding CTS, looking for jobs. I'd go job hunting every morning. And I'd get odd jobs. I have picked vegetables in Ohio. I have worked in a dry cleaner in Cleveland. I have worked at a service station in Cleveland. This is after I graduated all this, but the object wasn't, the thing wasn't I didn't feel like I was losing any dignity by supplying, trying to supply for my family, because I wanted me to be the one that did the supply. Yeah, my work ethic, because that's what my dad taught me, work ethics. His description to do your best on whatever it is that you got to do. He said, if you dig in a ditch, make sure yours is the best ditch out there.
Right.
You know, so he instilled us upon us, and some of our children, you just can't get them to understand that
Hey,
now
yeah.
that what you do reflects on your character. Whatever it is you do reflects on your character. But I finally worked about 6-7 months at Republic Steel there in the flats in Cleveland, until I got a job with General Electric. And I worked with General Electric until 1969. And my mom got sick, and that's when she had her final illness.
Right.
And I came back in '69, last part of '69, and I stayed with her and Darlene until she passed. She passed in '70. And somehow I just never went back. I just never went back. Might have had something to do with me and my first wife broke up. I still had 2 kids, but we broke up. I still had to do the same thing that I was doing if I was there. I still had to send them. I made sure they got Christmas gifts, and I made sure they got birthday gifts when they came up. Made sure I stayed in touch with them to find out how they were doing and what they needed. And I came down here and I started staying with my sister Darlene. And that was just like staying with Mama. I was just a grown man that moved back into the house with Mama. That's where it felt.
Right.
Her and her husband Jerry, they were both good people. Jerry was a good man. And I liked her attitude. Well, I liked Darlene's attitude with him, because she would tell me, every once in a while I'd get kind of lazy and I start sitting around. I stopped looking for a job for a minute. I think I got kind of depressed at one time. But she told me this one time, she said, let me tell you something. I'm not going to let you lay around here on Jerry when he has to go out and work to supply the needs of this house. She was a stickler for that. They'd been together for so long they could tell what each one was thinking. And I was basically from Cave Spring anyhow, because I was down here even as a child, about 12 years old. I'd ride my bike from Chubbs to Cave Spring on Saturdays to get little odd jobs, cut grass here and cut grass there.
Cave Spring.
It's been a good safe haven.
Yeah.
It's been a good safe haven. It's kept me from, I guess, going the way that some of us went. Because the village still existed. If you did something, it wasn't just one person. Even though the telephones were 2 party, it might have been part of it. They knew what you was doing before you could get home. And you'd often hear this from the older folk, from the older generation. If they saw you, you didn't have to necessarily be doing anything wrong, but the question would be asked you, ain't you amateurs, boy? So whatever it was you were doing, you needed to stop, or you need to check yourself. You need to put yourself in check. The whole community raised the children. And everybody's yard was open. You just go and you shot marbles and you played cowboys and Indians. I've still got some lasting friends down here. It's just a good place. Cave Spring is a good place. Fairview was a good starting point for me. Yeah, it was a good starting point for me because it taught me a lot of basic things. I even learned cursor down here from print to cursor. Yeah, when I went to Cedar Hill, I already knew how to write.
Right.
Not just print. I already knew how to write.
So you were really ahead of the children when you went to other places because Fairview just kind of put you.
The diligence that the teachers put into you here.
Who was your favorite teacher?
My favorite teacher was Miss Grimes.
Miss Grimes, okay.
Miss Grimes. She was hard as nails, but she was fair, and she only demanded one thing, and that was your best. That's the only thing she demanded. I think some of us thought that she was too harsh, but looking back, I don't know why she was really my favorite. Miss Ola Howard, she was a great teacher for me too. She was a great teacher. She taught me math. Cousin Joseph, she was good. I didn't really have, not in my opinion, I didn't really have any bad teachers in my life. Your dad was a great inspiration to me.
Oh, thank you.
Your dad was a great inspiration to me.
He loved his Fairview.
He loved his Fairview. He loved his Fairview, and he is Brown. And, we all became our families. Well, he was integrated with everybody, but he became kind of tied with my part of the family. Mama and Darlene and Jerry, and all that. He just kind of it was just his second home. It felt like to him his second home, and you and Bob and all of y'all was just, it was just like y'all was a part of the family.
Right.
So I had great leaders. I had great leaders. I had leaders that wasn't there just for a paycheck. They were there because they honestly and they diligently liked what they were doing.
Absolutely. I've heard that so many times.
Yeah, they was actually interested in the well-being, our well-being. I feel like if I had, I might have gone farther if I had remained in Cave Spring. Because I felt like there was a closeness, like I say, between the teachers here in Cave Spring. I'm not putting down my teachers in Cedartown and Polk County because they were good too. But it was the closeness of the ones here in Cave Spring that really brought me, made it seem like we were a family. And the we were a community. We were a community, and I think all that came from Fairview. There were a lot of things that went on up here on the hill. Most of it was just basic curriculum. But you know, back in the day we had. I tell this every time. Back in the day we didn't have to go to the health department. We didn't have to go to the health department for the necessary shots or inoculations for a certain period of time. The county health nurse, the health department would send the county health nurse every 3 months for inoculations, and they kept us up to date on our shots that we need taken, on our vaccinations. And I was definitely afraid of needles. That's been my fear. And I came to recognize when the county nurse was going to be present on the hill. She was set up down the hill in the building down there, in the auditorium and everything. And before the smell of alcohol would rise up the hill, the boys in the older classes, in the higher classes, they would either bring around a crate of bananas, or apples, or oranges, or whatever, you know, and I come to associate that with the nurse. When the fruit came out, I got ready to break. but but it was good times. It was good times during a bad period. It was good times during a bad period. Segregation was at its peak. Segregation was at its peak. But the dedicated teachers that we had during that period didn't let segregation or the lack of materials prohibit their way of teaching.
Right.
They administered the lessons. I still know my numerical chart. I know my 1s to 12s. That's not left me. And it amazes me. What amazes me sometimes is when you're talking to someone. See, we didn't have calculators.
Right. True.
We didn't have calculators, and they did not want to see you counting on your fingers. So you might well cut off your fingers when they ask you a question. So we had to learn our multiplication chart. We had to learn our multiplication chart, and all this had to be done in your head and the main computer room. You know, things say we grow weaker and wiser, but our students, our children today, if they don't have a calculator, if they don't have a computer, if you ask them, here's $1. I'm buying 67 cents worth of this, and I give them 33 cents. They have to look at it like this and stop before they can count it up to $1. You know. You at a register and they going, and I already know the answer, and you should know the answer. You shouldn't have to have a machine to tell you what you're doing. But it is what it is. It is what it is. And we're here today. I'm here today because I had good teachers. I had good parents. I lived in the village, and I was part of it, and I'm still glad to be that old country boy from Cedartown, Cave Spring, Georgia.